Hello all, welcome back. Welcome to the new topic, a recovery catalog. Very important topic. Today we will be discussing about the part 1 of recovery catalog. Okay, let's get started. So what we will be covering in this course, this will be the course outline. Here we will be seeing comparing between using control file and recovery catalog as RMAN repository, creating and manage recovery catalog, and manually resynchronizing recovery catalog. Okay, so when we talk about recovery catalog and when we talk about what all RMAN recovery repository options we have in the Oracle database, there are two options, as we must be knowing that there is a control file and there is a recovery catalog database. Okay, so recovery catalog is a separate database which will be storing the RMAN repository and the RMAN history, okay, backup history. Okay, so let's see the differences. So what control file will do is it will store the history of the backups for maximum of 1 year, not more than that. Okay, so you see the limitation here. What recovery catalog does is it stores the history of the backups longer than 1 year, or it can keep the backup as long as you want to, okay, and as long as your database supports it. Okay, RMAN repository of the local database only. What it means is control file only records the RMAN repository for the local database only, through which it connects to. Okay, when we say RMAN target / it will only take care of or store the backup information and into the control file, okay, for the local database only. Okay, but RMAN catalog will be storing the RMAN repository for the multiple target database. So let's say if you have multiple production databases at your workplace, then you can actually add your databases to the recovery catalog, and then make sure that the control files of those databases, okay, get synchronized into the recovery catalog, okay, as long as you want to. Now there's a limitation in the control file, okay, it cannot store the scripts, okay, but recovery catalog allows you to store the script and run the script. Okay, so let's say you want to run a specific script you have created or your DBAs have created, okay, to multiple databases, multiple target databases, then you can store those script and then run it, and it will actually make sure that it runs on all the database and takes the backup of or whatever you want to perform, action you want to perform, it does on all the target databases. Okay, now as we say, because it only manages the local database, okay, the control file, it is easier to manage. There is more complicated management in this. Okay, here the control file record keep time, it's not forever, okay, it is maximum of 1 year as we already discussed, but here there is a clause called keep forever, and then you can keep the backup information or repository for as long as you want to. Okay, now from the control file repository as a repository, you cannot retrieve the database physical structure, okay, but from a recovery catalog you can run report schema, and then you can get the details of what all data files this particular that particular target database contains, okay, including its structure as well as the size of that. Okay, if you have a small house, okay, if you want to manage a small backup, okay, not a big strategy, not a big database environment, then you can use the control file as a repository for RMAN, but it is not recommended when you have a huge environment where you are managing around 1000 or 1500 databases. Okay, so make sure to configure recovery catalog and add the target databases into it and manage your backup recovery repository accordingly. Okay, let's move on. So now the question comes in is how to create a recovery catalog. Okay, there are three major steps. What all those three steps are? As you can see, configure the recovery catalog database. Okay, first you need to configure the recovery catalog database. Usually when you see in the big environment, okay, including the insurances and banking infrastructure, okay, you will see that there will be a separate database, okay, a complete separate database for the recovery catalog. Okay, so that has to be configured, a single instance or rack, whatever you want to configure, but it will be a complete database which will house the recovery catalog, okay, a repository for RMAN. Second, you need to create a recovery catalog owner which will own all these information, okay, and then we will create a recovery catalog. Okay, let's move on. So we will go through one by one for whatever points we have discussed here. So how to configure the recovery catalog database? What you need to do is creating a table space for the recovery catalog. Okay, make sure to create a table space which will become a default table space for recovery catalog owner, which we will be creating in the next step. How do you create a table space? As we all must be knowing about how to create a table space. This specific table space is for two specific table is to house the RMAN repository for the target databases. Okay, so create table space and table space name and the data file location and the size. Okay, let's move on. Now we will be creating a recovery catalog owner. So what will be the step? Create the recovery catalog owner. Okay, and you need to grant this role to the recovery catalog owner. So creating this user and then specifying the default table space what we have created earlier as rcat underscore tbs, and okay, I provide the quota unlimited for that specific table space. Now grant that recovery catalog owner to this particular user. This part is done. So two steps completed. We have created a table space and we have created a recovery catalog owner. Next step will be creating a recovery catalog. So what will this recovery catalog do? You need to connect to a recovery catalog database as a catalog owner. So we have created in the previous step this step, okay, our RC owner. Okay, you need to connect to a recovery catalog database. Wherever your recovery catalog database is sitting, you need to connect that database using that particular owner, which will have this particular role, recovery catalog owner role. Connect to that and execute create catalog command, okay, to create the catalog objects. So internal libraries and binaries, okay, including the tables. Now so this is the way you invoke RMAN. Okay, you get a RMAN prompt and then you connect using connect and use the keyword catalog, and then the owner of the catalog database and / and the password at the TNS entry. Okay, and then run the create catalog. So that will create the catalog objects. So how do you manage the target database records in recovery catalog? Now you want to register the target database. Okay, you have multiple target databases. How do you register it? That will be the first question. Okay, now there are chances where you have a backup file sitting somewhere, okay, in the OS directory. You want to catalog those backup files into the repository, okay, recovery catalog repository. How do you locate that file and add it to the recovery catalog so that recovery catalog knows that this file exists? Okay, otherwise how would it know? Now if you want to, in future you're decommissioning a database, you want to unregister the target database from the recovery catalog, how to do that? These are the questions which needs to be answered. So let's move forward and let's see how it's done. So registering a database in recovery catalog. So how do you do that is you run RMAN, and then you connect to the target database or whatever database you want to connect and register. So first piece, you see that first piece, RMAN target slash. This piece is the database you want to register in catalog, okay? And the second piece is you need to specify the catalog keyword and then mention the ID and the password of the recovery catalog owner at the TNS entry of the recovery catalog database, okay? So there are two pieces, the database you want to register, and make sure to enter the keyword and then mention the details, and then run the register database, okay? What it will do is it will create the rows in the recovery catalog table for the target database, and it will synchronize the recovery catalog with the control file. So your database will have control file. What it will do, it will take a snapshot, RMAN will take a snapshot of that control file, it will synchronize the control file details to the recovery catalog. This is how the synchronization is done, okay? Now if you want to remove the details, this removes information about the target database from the recovery catalog, as we all talked about. Use this when you no longer want the target database to be defined in the recovery catalog. So the same way you need to mention all these details we discussed earlier, and then run the unregistered database. It will remove the tables as well as the details and as well as the backup information of the target database you want to unregistered. But there is a warning here. If you unregistered a database, you will lose all the repository or historical data of the RMAN backups, okay? So make sure you have a backup of the recovery catalog database itself, so that you can recover the information in future if you want to, okay? Now let's talk about the recovery catalog synchronization. So this is the process, as we all can understand from the tagline. When we want to update the recovery catalog with the changes made on the control file, right, regular backups are taken, all those backup information, okay, including whatever archive log backup or control file auto backup or the normal data file backups are being taken. Those backups are sitting somewhere on the OS, but control file is recording all those information as, okay, in its repository. All those information must be synced to the recovery catalog, okay? So there are two synchronization methods, partial and full. In the partial method, only the metadata for the recovery files are updated, okay, not all the details. Mostly the details are sitting, mostly the details will be there, or the backup information or the location of the backup files will be sitting in the control file record keep time. And for the changes to the control file are those records that are governed by control file record keep time. So in the partial backup, what will happen is this control file record keep time, right? So in the partial backup, recovery catalog will not override the amount of time you want to keep the backup, okay? So what partial backup will do, it will only store the metadata information, but it will also make sure that this control file record keep time is in place, okay? So because as we all know that control file record keep time is not more than 1 year, so you may lose the information or the repository, okay? But in full backup, RMAN, what it does is it takes the snapshot of the control file and it synchronizes that control file completely into the recovery catalog for the target database. It also copies or updates the details of the database structure, okay? It uses the resync catalog command to actually make sure that everything is sync with the recovery catalog from the control file. Now the question comes is, if you want to manually resync the recovery catalog, sometimes there is a chance where you might need to manually resync the recovery catalog with the control file from your target database. Okay, here are some situations where you might need to manually resync. So if by chance your recovery database is not available, okay, recovery catalog database is not available for some time, okay, and your control file is keeping all that information in its repository, okay, so what will happen is, as soon as the recovery catalog database comes up, you can manually run resync catalog, and RMAN, what it will do, it will take the snapshot of control file and it will synchronize the details from the control files to the recovery catalog database. Okay, when you are performing the infrequent backups on the target database, okay, then also you might need to run the resync catalog. Okay, and finally, when you are making a physical changes to your target database, then also it is better to resync the catalog. Okay, so these are the points. Now we will discuss the next part, where we will see how we can catalog the files and how we can create an RMAN script and how we can store and list the RMAN scripts. Okay, thank you very much for watching.